morning, North Tarrant Church. My name is Scott Johnson. I'm the lead pastor here at North Tarrant Church. And I am honored that you've chosen to join us online today. Now, if this is your first time here, I want to let you know, as a church, our mission is we want to inspire people. We want to inspire you to follow after Jesus. I genuinely believe that when we follow after Jesus, we find that our life is better and we become better at life. We find the decisions we make lead to less regret. We find that there's, even in the midst of heartache, there's peace and hope. And if you got questions about what it looks like to follow Jesus, I would love to be able to be a resource, to have a text message or a phone call or to meet over coffee so that we can talk about the conversation, the questions that are stirring in your heart. Now today we're about to hand it over to one of our teaching pastors, and then from there our band is going to come up and sing a song to remind us what it really looks like to follow Jesus, a song to remind us of the joy that can be found when we anchor our lives to Him. I want to thank you so much for being here. Next Sunday, if you're interested, we are right here at Lizzie Curtis Elementary School on a weekly basis. We would love for you to join us in person or online, either way. Well, hey, thanks for joining us, and at this point, we'll continue our service. Thank you. Well, there's an individual who wrote a letter in the New Testament. His name is James. James happens to be the brother of Jesus, which, if you think about it, just think about this idea that the brother of Jesus became a follower of Jesus. The brother of Jesus was so enamored with the fact that his older brother was his savior that he became a leader of a local church, and he actually wrote a letter, and it's a fascinating letter. And here's the fascinating thing is it's practical ways a follower of Jesus should live their life. And James would know. He grew up in the shadows of his older brother. In fact, it's believed he did not become a follower of Jesus until after the resurrection, which poses the question, what would it take for you to believe your older sibling is actually the Son of God? Probably a resurrection, right? Like anything short of that, nope, you're you're goody two-shoes. Nope, I could never live up. I was always in my brother's footsteps. I was always in his shadow. My parents, why can't you do things like Jesus, right? Like, it's just not okay. But James, the brother of Jesus, would say this: consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kind. He starts off, and this is James chapter 1, verse 2. Right out of the gate. Hey, my name's James. I'm a follower of Jesus. Consider it pure joy. When we are facing trials of any kind, choose. There's this reality when we are facing trials that I'm going to choose joy. It's not something that just finds me. You see, joy is not dependent on your circumstances, nor is it dependent upon your pleasure. Joy is a choice. It's a choice that we have, that we're going to wake up today, and I'm not going to let yes, life is going to be difficult. Life is going to be frustrating, but I'm not going to let the frustrations find me. I'm going to choose joy. And listen to how James continues. He says, because you know that the testing of your faith, the testing of your confidence in God produces perseverance. There's something about me choosing joy and finding that in the midst of these struggles, I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. I'm choosing joy even though it's hard. It's not happiness. Happiness is a completely different thing. Happiness is an emotion that it's here today, gone tomorrow. Joy is a deep-seated joy that regardless of the circumstances at play, I'm choosing joy. He says, let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Let it finish its work so that you can be mature and complete. You think about it, when we face trials, and these trials could be anything from a struggle at work, it could be a relational dynamic that's challenging, it could be something from you just aren't getting your way in a relationship. Maybe you have an older sibling that right now you and your sibling are at odds with your mom or your parents, and you're trying to figure things out, and you don't like this or you don't like that. Isn't it true when we face a trial, this tends to be our prayer? God, get me out. God, I just don't think you understand what you're doing. This is so big, I can't handle it. God, I can't believe this happened. God, would you just get me out of this issue? When what James is telling us is rather than praying, God, get me out, what if we change the prayer to, God, would you get me through it? God, would you help me through this? God, I'm not happy right now. I wish this wasn't the case. I wish I didn't have this diagnosis. I wish I didn't have this issue with our kids. I wish this wasn't the way we are in life. But rather than praying, God, would you just take this away? What if we reframed our prayer to say, God, would you help get me through this? You see, because sometimes when we begin to say, God, get me out, what do? We're looking not at what our life, we're looking at our life compared to other people. God, I want you to get me out of this because they're not dealing with this. God, I want you to get me out of this because they're not struggling with this. God, I want you to get me out of this because this just isn't fair. God, you owe me, which is a challenge in and of itself, but comparison or envy really is us saying, God, you owe me. And isn't it true that you destroy your own joy when you compare your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel? You see what's going on. You see the challenges, you see the struggles, you see the emotion on the backside, and we compare our lives to what everybody else's highlight reel is. You see, there's no win in comparison. Comparison can be the biggest thief of our joy because all of a sudden we're saying, God, would you get me out so I could be like? You see, joy's not found in comparison. Joy's a focus. It's not a feeling. Joy is a focus. Now, I want to be careful because I know that sometimes people can see joy in different ways. Like, I understand at times I can be rather bubbly and rather excitable. And, like I've had several that have talked to me and said, you're always full of joy. What does this look like? I've had different people that have come up and be like, I want you to know that there is a temperament at play. And being filled with joy is not necessarily having an exterior, a big, exciting, gregarious personality. That's a temperament. In fact, I've seen realists be more filled with joy than people that are just uber positive. The eternal optimist. Why? Because they can never do anything wrong. Oh, it's going to be okay. And all of a sudden, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And they fall flat on their face. And all of a sudden, it's not okay. And they're trying to figure out, how do I make sense of this? But joy is more than just a bubbly, gregarious personality. Joy is choosing. It is making the choice, even though sometimes life can be challenging. Joy is a focus. Joy is it's a point of view. It's a way that we see the world. It's a way that we see our struggles. It's a way that we see our kids, even when they come in at 6 o'clock in the morning. Joy is a focus. In fact, something fascinating, the author of Hebrews, we're really unsure who wrote Hebrews, but the author of Hebrews wrote this remarkable letter to the Hebrew nation talking about what does it look like to follow Jesus and how do we implement this. And in Hebrews 12:1, he says this, therefore, which one thing I would encourage you, when you're reading through the Bible, whether it's the Old Testament or the New Testament, and you come across a word like therefore, I would encourage you to read what is right before therefore. Because it helps you to understand why what you're about to read is there. It helps you understand and put into context what is happening. In fact, right before this passage, there's Hebrews chapter 11, which some call it's the Faith Hall of Fame. There's all these different individuals, these different stalwarts of the faith that are documented in the Jewish scriptures. And it goes through one by one how they place their faith in God. All of a sudden, you see one individual after another. I mean, it's like 60 verses filled with individuals that showcase a remarkable faith. And the author's saying, I want you to know these guys. I want you to see how even in difficult times, they found their faith was the focus of their life, and their joy, it overflowed. And so he says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, there's so many people that have gone before you that have showcased what it's like to have remarkable confidence in God. Let us throw off everything that hinders us. Let us throw off everything that hinders us, both the things the sin that entangles us. I mean, we've seen how when we cause a regret for somebody else, when we sin against somebody else, that there is a regret, there's a hurt, there's a frustration. But at times, it's not just throwing off the sin that entangles us. There's also, we need to throw off the things that steal our joy. Throw off the need to compare, the need to strive for happiness, the need to continue to wail in a woe is me idea and challenge. Throwing off everything that hinders me from my joy, anything that could keep me from enjoying life. Not throw off all of the bad circumstances, because following Jesus doesn't mean life is going to be up and to the right. Following Jesus means there are going to be health diagnoses that are overwhelming. It's therefore, throw off everything that hinders us, that keeps us from experiencing joy, and everything, all the sin that easily entangles us. And here's what he says, and let us run with perseverance. That same word James used. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. How do we do this? By fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author, the pioneer, and the perfecter of our faith. And listen to what he says next. For the joy set before him. I mean, think about this word picture. For the joy set before him. Jesus knew what was about to happen. The author of Hebrews understands that when Jesus walked into this world, he understood that the joy set before him was relational equity, was relational bridges, was being able to bridge a relationship between the humans that he's interacting with and engaging with and a heavenly Father that loves them and is for them and is bigger than any problem you could ever face. He says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the Father. Jesus understood that what he's about to walk into, this element of torture, is not going to be fun. But even in the midst of this struggle, he was able to find joy. Even in the midst of the pain, he was able to find joy. And he used words like, and he endured the cross. Like, when was the last time you endured something and you walked away saying, man, that was joyful? Wow. But as a follower of Jesus, there is this encouragement, this challenge that we get to look into. In fact, something that's kind of interesting, when we look at these verses, look at what the author of Hebrews says. He says, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. And then he continues on talking about Jesus, for the joy set before him. You know, when the author was writing this, these two phrases were actually used by the same word. And look at what this word actually means. It means to place, to be placed before the eyes, to lie in sight. That there's something about our joy that is found in what we're focusing on. There's something about our joy is found in what is ahead of us. There's something about our joy being found not in our circumstances and not in the challenges, not in what we're focusing, but our joy can be found in what we are focused on, what is set before us. In fact, our joy is connected to what's set before you. The joy we have or the joy we can find is connected to what is right in front of you. So what is your focus? What are we currently focusing on? Maybe it's relationships. And maybe you find yourself that your focus is on the companionship or the challenges therein. Your focus is on a relationship that's missing, a relationship that's challenging, a relationship that is just blown up. Maybe your focus right now is, I want more influence. I want more influence. I want to figure out ways that I can get the corner office. I want to figure out ways that I can be the person that everybody's looking to. Maybe you're on a happiness quest. You're trying to find comfort at every corner, and you continually find that if it's not good for me, it's just I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to keep focusing on whatever makes me happy. That's my joy. That's what I'm running for. Maybe your focus is on safety. And you're sitting here thinking, you know what, if it's safe, like I don't want to do anything that's not safe, so I'm gonna focus in, I'm gonna lean in, I'm gonna walk through this life focusing on safety. And those are good things. Don't hear me wrong. But they can be challenging if they're our focus, because in many instances, if things appear unsafe, our joy can be thwarted. Rick Warren, who's an author and a pastor just retired, this is how he defined joy. He says, joy is the settled assurance that God is in control of all the details of my life. The quiet confidence that ultimately everything is going to be all right, and the determined choice to praise God in every situation. You know, I've heard that in many instances, joy can be equated to purpose. There's something about when I am living my life on purpose, for a purpose, we can take a deep breath and we can breathe and everything's going good. But I found that when we try to find meaning in life, that sometimes we have to be a means to somebody else's end. To really be a person of purpose, sometimes when we look and see that maybe in the frustration or the health diagnosis, we can be a means to somebody else's joy. Maybe in the broken relationship, we can find joy, that there's purpose behind what we're walking through. We were sharing earlier with our service programming team, and one of the ladies on our team was talking about how she has a friend of hers. And her friend, their family, within the last 6 months, they experienced a house fire, and it ravaged everything, destroyed everything. And she's made the comment that she's gone back to this individual and she's asked her, hey, how can we help you? And in every single scenario when she's gone to her, she said she is just blown away by the fact that there's joy. Hey, don't worry about it. Like, the house that we're living in right now has been provided for us. Don't worry about it. We've got meals coming in. Don't worry about it. There's joy. Look what I found. Oh my goodness, this is exciting. Like, there's joy that even in one of the most ravaging scenarios, that there can be joy. As a chaplain at Medical City Alliance, oftentimes I get the chance to walk into different rooms. And I've found that there's a joy even in the most dire circumstances. There's a joy when I walk in a room and there's somebody who understands that there's something more to this life than this life. There's something beyond this. There's a joy that just kind of takes over. And I sit down and I'm like, can I just learn from you? Like, what is it about you that made you want to choose joy in this circumstance? Like, this isn't right, this isn't fair, but you've chose joy. You see, joy is not something that just finds us. Joy truly is something we choose. It's our focus. It's our point of view. It's in the midst of everything that's challenging, it's us being able to come back and say, you know what? Regardless of what happens today, God, I choose joy. We ended last week looking at David, and David made the statement that even when I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Listen to how David wrote this passage in Psalm 16. He says, you make known to me the path of life. You've laid out my path. God, I'm going to trust you in these moments. In your presence, there is the fullness of joy. I don't understand what's happening in my life, but God, when I focus my life on you, there is the fullness of joy. Consider pure joy, my brothers, anytime you face trials of any kind, because you know that the testing of your faith has a purpose. There is the fullness of joy when we begin to see where we're going. So I want to ask you, what is your focus? What are you looking at? And maybe in the midst of what we're going on, maybe Murphy has not found you and life is going great for you. Maybe in these moments we need to, in these scenarios, choose joy. God, regardless of what goes on, I'm going to choose joy today. Or maybe this is a challenging week, a challenging season. Disappointment has found you, and it has, in many instances, it's caused you to freeze. I want to ask you, encourage you. I want to plead with you that would you join me in choosing joy, even in the difficult times, choosing joy even when it seems unfair, choosing joy even when life can be daunting. The joy that we have is when we fix our eyes on Jesus and we place our faith knowing that he's in control, that I trust him, that I'll trust him with my life. We're going to sing a song in just a moment. And there's a line in the lyrics that says that it is well. I'm going to put my eyes and put my focus on you. God, in these moments, it is well. I want to invite you as the band is going to be singing with us. Would you, maybe that's your declaration. You want to stand and say, God, in my life, it is well. And God, I'm choosing joy. Or maybe this is a time for you just to reflect and sit back and say, God, you know what? Life isn't fair. It's a challenge. It's a struggle. But God, in these moments, God, would you show me what it looks like to choose joy? Would you pray with me? God, we love you, and we thank you so much for the fact that you are a big God. God, joy can be a daunting reality. God, it can be exciting in moments of celebration, but God, the other side of it is in difficult times, God, it can get the best of us. In fact, in difficult times, we can want to push it aside and say, God, would you take this away? But God, I pray that our prayer collectively would be one that says, not, God, take this away, but God, would you help me through? And God, would you not just help me through, but would you give me a posture of joy regardless of what I'm facing today? God, we need you. God, help us to refocus our life from the disappointments that come and put it on the joy that you have sustained for us. God, we choose joy, even in difficult times. In Jesus' name that I pray.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up till I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire, darkest night. You were close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. It's running after me. With my life laid down and surrendered now, I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after. sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am making, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Yes, I will sing of the goodness of God.